Hi, I'm Evan, and I have completed the Sketchbook Slam Challenge. So, very quickly, the Sketchbook Slam Challenge is a challenge where you get this 600-page sketchbook and complete it in 1 month. It's something that's been floating around the YouTube art community for a couple of years now, a little while. A few people have attempted it, very few have completed it, and I'm happy to say that I am now one of them. So, right quick, I'll just get some quick questions out of the way. Did I enjoy this challenge? Yes. Would I do it again? Yes. Do I recommend this challenge? Absolutely. Is it ridiculously difficult? Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done? Yes. So, all right. So, we're going to do a full sketchbook tour here today of this book. This is the book. Very quickly, I will say the quality of the sketchbook is not as great as you would want it to be, especially considering the price of this thing. Mine was around $25 on sale, but off sale, I think they get from $50 to $70 for this same sketchbook, which is ridiculous. The binding is kind of cheap. The cover falls apart really quickly. So I started this challenge with my older sister, whose idea it was, and my brother-in-law, who jumped the gun, bought the sketchbook right away, and caused us to then do the same. And their sketchbooks both fell apart right away. The binding completely tore off, and just, they're a completely flimsy mess. I didn't have that problem for the longest time until I got about halfway through, and then mine did the same thing. So, sketchbook itself is kind of flimsy. As you can see, I had to duct tape mine together. The back cover completely tore off. Anyways, let's go ahead and have a look at it. So, page 1, I wanted to start with something a little bit symbolic, something that I felt representative of, like, kind of me as an artist, I guess. So I went with this little symbol that I've been drawing a lot in the recent past. Previously, I did it with charcoal, so it was a little bit more expressive that way. I did this one with pen, and it came out terribly. But one of the things you kind of learn with this challenge is that you do not have time to go back and fix things that you don't like. You don't have time to really dwell on it. You kind of just have to fire out the pages and keep going and just accept that maybe it's not as good as you wanted it to be. Maybe you could do it better next time. So even though I don't like the way this looks, it looks like a mess, I think it's fitting. And the second page was actually blank for a really long time. On the very last day, I added this cider here, because technically this first page isn't counted in the initial page count, the 600 pages. This is part of the binding. It's not counted as a page. So you don't have to necessarily draw on that, but I decided not to leave this part blank anyway. All right, so taking on this challenge, I had not been drawing much for a very long time. I'd pretty much been out of art almost completely for almost 2 years. And so my first few pages were really like an extended warm-up. As you can see here, here's my character Bal, and it's just some miscellaneous, anatomy sketches. Here's a very tiny figure. I had to get the confidence to draw bigger again, and here's like a torso, And one of my initial thoughts with this challenge early on was I wanted to try graphite for most of the book, because with graphite you can draw really big really quickly, and so I had these graphite pencils that I really wanted to try out, and so that's what this was done with. And I felt pretty good about it. I just, here's a quick test face and some abstractions, but what I realized obviously is that graphite is very messy, and if you're trying to draw on both sides of a page in a book, it's gonna get everywhere. And, I kind of realized pretty quickly it probably wasn't going to work. This page was blank for the longest time. I think it was right at the end I added this little cider doodle here just to have something on it. And here's just some graphite figures. Again, these were just kind of warm-ups to get back into the mood, get back into the mindset of drawing, especially drawing so much so quickly. Here are some faces. This is still with the graphite pencil. Here's sorry, I've been calling it graphite. Charcoal. Charcoal is what I'm talking about. But yeah, charcoal pencils. And this is an apple. All right, so there's the final page of charcoal I did in the entire sketchbook. As you can see, not very early in. This was also all in the first session I did. The first session was actually like 3 days in for me. We started the challenge in August. So August 1st was our first day. August 31st would be the very end. And so I was busy, the first couple days of the month, so I didn't get started right away. And the way the challenge works is, in order to do 600 pages in the month, you essentially have to average 20 pages per day. And so if you don't do that, you're falling behind. So every day you don't draw 20 pages, you are falling further behind. And so I started out about 60 pages behind. on my first day, and I didn't even hit the 20 pages the first day I started drawing. But yeah, this was the last charcoal page that I did. I really like the results. This is a character called Dumpster Girl. You'll see her a lot. She's one of my go-tos when I just don't know what else to draw, or when I just feel like projecting something, because she's got long and spindly, like exaggerated limbs, and she's like extremely sickly, but it's fun to project her onto a page in like wacky poses, so you'll see some of that. But yeah, I actually went and sealed this page with an acrylic sealer to make so the the charcoal didn't spread everywhere and make a big mess. But it took way too long to do that, and I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't going to be practical to keep drawing with charcoal in this book, so I kind of gave up on it. And also, for like a week after sealing this page, the entire sketchbook smelled like the acrylic sealer, which was awful. So I switched to colored pencils. Now, I'd recently purchased this pack of jumbo colored pencils. These are just a fine touch, the Hobby Lobby brand, because I wanted to try them for exactly the reason that I like charcoal, which is that, you know, it's a big pencil size, a big lead size, so you could maybe spread the material a little more quickly. You could draw a lot bigger with them. And so I was just kind of sketching around with those just to see how I felt about it. And I liked it. And probably about half of the sketchbook was done with that set of pencils I showed there. So you'll see a lot of different colored sketches throughout. Here's just some miscellaneous fashion. Here's some faces. So going into the challenge, there were a couple of things that I had really wanted to work on. I thought this would be a great opportunity to practice some things that I'm not very good at. And though there are plenty, I narrowed it down to just a few things. So I wanted to work on faces. I wanted to work on poses. I wanted to work on coloring, and then clothing, like folds and fabric folding, like things like that. What I realized pretty quickly was that you spend so much time just trying to, you know, get caught up, especially if you're behind like I was. You spend so much time just trying to keep up that you don't really have as much time as you want to do like detailed studies. You don't have time to really like go into detail in any of these pictures. You can't really focus on specific elements as much. And, you know, I thought I'd have the time to color things and practice coloring. That was a joke. You don't have time to color anything really, unless you're very, very quick, which I'm not. But yeah, so you'll see a lot of like random faces and a lot of poses. Almost everything in this book is a character drawing. I didn't do a lot of like miscellaneous objects and things. That just wasn't the focus. And here's a little house miniature that I found at a yard sale. Here's some an apple and some ciders. These were fun. I wanted to try also drawing some little silly things without sketching, because I sketch very heavily. I pad my lines a lot, so I thought it would be nice to try just going straight to line art and seeing how straight I could get the lines, and, you know, could I make it coherent? Could I make it look neat? Could I, you know, draw confidently enough to even do that? And, you know, I'm not great at it. I'm not great at a lot of things, but I feel like it came out pretty well. I was a little surprised with the results. It's not as bad as I expected it to be. So here's just an old man face with facial hair, probably one of the only ones in the book. Something I probably should have focused on more. Here's a Zaranoff. Another thing, so this is probably still week 1, and I found a good way to motivate myself to just draw things. It's because I like to draw characters. I have a lot of different characters. I have a lot of stories. I'm constantly writing new stories, coming up with these wacky ideas and projects and things. And so I have hundreds of characters going back, you know, almost over a decade at this point. And so I pulled out a lot of my old art, which I just have stashed away in folders everywhere. And I was just looking through it, looking for old characters to inspire me to try and redraw some of my silly teenage ideas. This is Yua. She actually goes back to 2005, so I would have been maybe 10 or 11. All right, and so here's another one of those characters. I don't know if he ever had a name. I can't remember him ever having one, but he was just someone that I drew back in 6th grade. Another random redesigned outfit. I used to have a terrible taste in fashion, so I would just come up with the wackiest, weirdest, like abomination anime outfits when I was a kid, because I never knew how to dress anybody, so it was just, they got what they got, and some of them were quite strange. There's Dressir, Terex, and see, Dandy and Ravager from Kauai Schoolgirl. You'll see a lot of Kauai Schoolgirl characters in this sketchbook, my stupid animation project parody thing. This was a case where I failed the first drawing, so I tried to redraw it better, and it came out a little bit better, but still kind of failed. These were pen drawings. I sketch a lot with pens, you know, I used to anyways, you know, before getting into this, I was heavily into pen sketching, and my last sketchbook is full predominantly with pen drawings. And so I thought that I would fill most of this sketchbook with pen drawings as well. That didn't really end up happening. I fell more in love with the colored pencils. But yeah, here's Moe Microwave. I thought it might be fun to try and draw a more serious version of her in a less cartoony style. But I messed up the face horribly, so I just redrew it right next to it. And that's generally, if I mess something up really badly, I might redraw it, or otherwise I'll just accept it and move on. Here's Cider. You're going to see a lot of her as well. Cider is pretty much my brand character, so she's very easy to draw, and she tends to come out a lot if I don't know what else to draw. And of course, Dumpster Girl. Like I said, here I was just kind of experimenting with the pencils. I really, really like them. They're, like I said, they're just a fine touch. It's like one of the cheap Hobby Lobby brands. They're not anything fancy. The leads are kind of hard on them. They're not super soft. They're not super blendable, but you can do a little bit with them. You get a decent amount of tone out of them, but I don't know that you could go super dark with them. But they were great for sketching. And yeah, the weirdest thing about those pencils is that the different colors seem to have different thicknesses to them. So like some of them were softer than others. It was bizarre. Anyway, here's Dandy, Cutie, and Yukai, one of my really old 2005 OCs back when I was into skateboarding. I thought it might be fun to try and draw someone mid kickflip, which came out pretty well. This one not so much. There's a lot of failed drawings in here. Here's another just sketchless drawing. I was trying to draw this pose with the hands, but I drew the hands inside out, so I just kind of went with it. This is Cider leveling up. She's slowly growing stronger. You'll see her adventure as it continues throughout the sketchbook. Miscellaneous anatomy projections. There's Asa, a character from something I'll probably never work with. Quester and Mr. Wizard Arms, they show up a couple times throughout. Just some fun little characters from a silly parody project. Kind of like most of my projects. Let's see, Rhonda, Lely, and Andra. These are the main characters from a story called War that I will probably never do anything with. That's a fun little idea, though. There's another Lely. Here's Lord Baal. He actually shows up a lot as well. If I just want to draw like a buff, muscular guy, he tends to be my go-to. Because he's extremely, exorbitant, like extravagant. It's just over the top, like, 80s action hero style, just tiny shorts, massive arms type of guy. There's Mocha, Cola, and Telly. And a lot of these other characters you'll see are from a similar project. Any character with horns is most likely from something called Legaciel, which is a working name. I haven't come up with a better one yet, but it's pretty much a typical, like, stereotypical shonen anime style show that I came up with a couple of years ago, and it just has a massive list of characters, as such shows are known to. And it's very silly, but they have fun designs, and I like to draw them, so they show up a lot throughout. There's Card and Lord Sable. Here's some face practices. I've been trying to work on, just the overall shapes of the face, and I definitely found some things that I didn't necessarily know before, so I'm glad that I did. One thing in particular that I was working on here was the way the jaw connects to the neck, which is a really strange interaction anatomically, and I'm still kind of struggling with that. I didn't learn as much about that as I wanted to, but here's a version after, staring at myself in the mirror for a couple of minutes. So yeah, still working on that, but there's a couple things like that you'll see in here. 7-7, here's Bone. Bone is from a project called December. He's an interdimensional space mercenary who uses heavy weapons and has a large codpiece. Seaweed Samantha. Miscellaneous Hands. Another thing I made some observations on were hands. Hands are pretty simple. I mean, you could just reference your own, but I haven't gone deep enough into detail with it to where I can draw them consistently in like some of the stranger configurations. But I was kind of studying like how certain things connect, especially like how the thumb and the forefinger interact, like the space in between there and little things like that. I feel like I did make some hand progress, which is good. There's another Dumpster Girl, some Ciders. Starboy and Creep, they're also from December. They're also interdimensional space mercenaries, incidentally. Small world. Here are the Kauai schoolgirls. I think this is the first page that they appear on. I was just drawing their little faces in a sketchless style, just the way they would be in a more closer to regular anime style versus the weird cartoony thing that they ended up, originally getting. But yeah, I ended up drawing these characters a lot. I don't have that much love in my heart at the moment for Kauai Schoolgirl as a silly project, silly project as it is. But I drew it a lot in this sketchbook, and I think it's just because like I've animated these characters a lot, so I've drawn them hundreds of times on animation frames, and they come out easily for that reason, and I have a long history with them, so They're very easy to fall back on. Here's Souza, Sultry Sadist from the same project. This is just a random river landscape. Someone told me to draw a landscape, and I tried my best. Pen, probably not the best tool for that, honestly, but yeah, this was a disaster. There are many things I don't know about flowing water, obviously. I'll have to study that at some point. There's really crappy pen drawings. The pen drawings in this actually are some of the worst, which is odd because, again, like I said before, I really thought pen was going to be my go-to tool for this. But yeah, here's another more powerful version of Cider. There are possibly even more powerful versions later in the book, but these ones are pretty strong already. So we'll just see what we come up on. Dumpster Girl again, and these ones were fun. I just wanted to try and have a figure fill the entire page, so I had her kind of like kneeling down here and just sitting down. And I like the way these ones turned out. I like these ones quite a bit. These are the main characters from Legacio, the weird horn monster slaying one. Wawa, Cress, Naki, and Johan, and they go on adventures and kill monsters. You'll see a couple of them throughout. So I thought it might be fun to try and design some Kauai schoolgirl outfits, like in the event that they had, unique uniforms that weren't just all the same sailor uniform that they wear, which looks kind of like this. So I thought it might be fun to try and draw some alternate costumes for them, and it was. And so here's Shawai Cool Girl, here's Sorry Sad Girl, Mellow, Feisty, Stunning, and here's another Sorry Sad Girl. I kind of fell in love with her outfit. I really like the way it looks on her, especially like her being really long and lanky. I think it works really well, so I drew that a couple more times throughout. Another Souza and Cunning Cutie. Miscellaneous Hands, Miscellaneous Faces. Nothing out of the ordinary. Some more Moe Microwave characters. Another Dumpster Girl. Her legs are way too long here, but it's okay. Another KSG villain. These are some of the side characters. This is Lola and Tori. This face really fell apart. Dolores. Love some Dolores. We need more Dolores in our lives. Here's Bone, but I made his head too big, so his body looks tiny. Here's another Bone. Miscellaneous torso stuff, just anatomy practice. It was fun to project these with pencil, because I don't know, I really particularly like the blue pencil out of that set. I don't know what it was about the darker blue, but that one really sketched well. I don't know if it's just the contrast with the white paper or what, but I like the way that it drew. So a lot of probably that's the one I think I used the most. And here's more just torso practice. What I was doing was just like the way the torso interacts with the pelvis. You sketch those out first, and then you can draw everything in between pretty easily. So it's fun to see just like what I could get away with there. The next couple of pages are concept art for a project called Quota. It's something I hope to do something with very soon. It's got a very well-written script that I did a couple of years ago and forgot about. So this is our good friend Kube. She's going to show up a lot as well from this point thereafter. This one is Shame, Kube's best friend. He's a dweeb. Here's Sadie. Macaroni and Cheese. And Andre. Andre's whole thing is he's supposed to be super jacked and buff, but it didn't really work in this style, so he came out looking super weird. I'm going to have to work on that. I'm going to have to experiment with that some. Here's Dawn. And Jackknife. There's obviously a Dumpster Girl warm-up. And now here's the thing with this challenge. So, like I said, you got to do 20 pages a day on average if you want to stay caught up, if you want to finish on time. And I was probably approaching the end of the second week by the time I got to this point. I don't remember exactly what date each page was drawn on. I didn't label them specifically. I would have to stare at the calendar and really try to remember back when was when, but I was going really slowly at this point because I'm a horrible procrastinator, especially with something like this, where I had it in my mind that, oh, well, if I fall behind, I can just, do a major session and do 100 pages in a day and I'll get caught back up. That's what I thought. Very optimistically, I thought that. That was not the case at all. But we'll more on that later. Here's the Curse. Had to get her in here at least once. There's a character called Belle from a silly side project. It was like a 1 hour thing that I slapped together. He's got a very, very simple design for that reason. Lord Melora. This character doesn't have an official name yet. So this page was an alphabet page. I didn't know who to draw or what to draw, so I was just asking people for a random letter out of the alphabet, and then I would just draw as many characters as I could think of with a name starting with that letter. So here's Aralos, E, No, this one's E, this one's 8. Feisty and Fornta. And macaroni and cheese. I was experimenting with her face, especially in this profile view, because I'm not good at drawing cat faces, and she's obviously a cat furry, so it's been a time trying to hammer that down and get that a little more consistent. But yeah, nothing good on these pages. Let's see, here's Egypt, Essie, and Eve. And this was a day I wanted to experiment with some oil pastels, because I've never really used them before. But since I like drawing with charcoal so much, I figured I would enjoy these. And so I just kind of I just tried them out, and I wanted to see if they were super messy. And they're a little messy. They're not that bad. They transfer between pages a little bit, but it's not nearly as bad as the charcoal. So you could get away with not sealing them as long as you weren't too concerned with potentially affecting the art on either side of the page. But I think it came out pretty well. I enjoyed it, but I didn't do much more with them after this day just because. And this was a page where I just I drew these opposing each other to see how much they would transfer between the two pages. As you can see, there is some transference, but it's not that bad. But yeah, I didn't end up using the pastels anymore after that, unfortunately. Here's a Lord Cola. This is something you'll see a lot of going forward, is just full page faces. Fastest way to fill a page is just slap a face on that bad boy, and I did that a couple of times. I'm very guilty of it. And here's her outfit, basically, or some alternate versions of her outfit. But yeah, this is one of those characters that has a disastrous hairstyle, but I love drawing it, so I end up drawing her a lot. Tarsereth, evil villain guy. He doesn't look very evil here, but I assure you he is. And some miscellaneous outfits from that same project. But yeah, so basically the way the challenge went for me was I would, on work days, I wouldn't get really anything done. And then on days off, I would try and hurry to catch up and just draw as much as I could. But the biggest thing that I found myself lacking was focus. I would sit down, draw a couple pages, and then, get up to go get something to eat, or, get up to go make a cup of tea or something like that. I would just always get distracted. So even if I, did a 6-hour drawing session, maybe only 3 of those hours would actually be spent drawing. I was just too distractible. I didn't have the focus to really just sit down and grind it all out. And that was what hurt me the most. And so, I was always optimistically telling myself, I was very cocky, telling myself that, I could just grind out 100 pages. I'll just make it up later. If I fall behind, I'll just make it up later. But what I realized is that even on those long sessions, I wasn't getting nearly as many pages done as I thought I was going to. And so I'd end up with, a full day spent on 30 to 40 pages or something like that. And I never really caught up. From the moment I started the challenge, I was behind. From day one, I was behind, and I never caught up. But yeah, there's a Kube page. This page is 100% Kube approved. Here's some more faces. These aren't characters, they're just miscellaneous faces. Here's another cider page. There's a couple of these. This one featuring apple as well. This is a pretty powerful form of cider. Maybe stronger than the last. I don't know. It's pretty tough to beat that. Wouldn't want to find that in a dark alleyway. There's another Quester and Appletail. They're from the same project. I don't think it officially has a name yet. See, Seaweed Samantha again. I'm surprised. This is the last drawing in here of Seaweed Samantha. I'm surprised I didn't draw her more, because despite being a very silly character, she is rather simple and fun to draw, but she didn't come up again after this. Here's another Sorry Sad Girl who surprisingly showed up a lot. There are a lot of Sorry Sad Girls in this sketchbook. Here's either Stranger or Doom Guy, depending on which project. This is a character he was the main villain of Kauai Schoolgirl, but really he was just an old generic character design that I co-opted from my childhood. I originally made him in 4th grade. He's probably derived from Jeepers Creepers, I don't know. Maybe a little bit of Jeepers Creepers, a little bit of Freddy Krueger, somewhere in between there. Now this is Roger. Yeah, he wears a cat hoodie, and he's very upset because people keep breaking his mailbox. Some characters I thought would stay in the trash heap forever, but here's Karen, Ori, and Chug. These are from Saviors of the Seven Stolen Seals, which was an animation that I wanted to try and make in one day, several years ago, and I never did, and I abandoned it forever. I love Ori, though. First name Ori, last name O's and Milk. This is Bone. Pretty good Bone, actually. Not bad. Here's another Quester. Try to do a fun pose here. It only kind of worked. I think her legs are a little too long. Here's Patra. So it's Patra, Quester, and Appletail. They're all from the same project. They go on fantasy adventures together and get into wacky hijinks and shenanigans. As do we all. Here's Scene Queen Cora and Skullgoth from Scene Queen Cora. Fun characters, those. Terrible project, but fun. Skullgoth again, and Dumpster Girl. Just, sitting down, occupying space. And a big thing you'll notice is I really wanted to try and fill the pages as much as possible. I didn't want to, it would have felt like a cop-out if I drew something small in the center of the page, I wanted to really cover as much ground as I could with these and leave as little white space as possible, which was probably to my detriment. As you can see, I drew multiple drawings on most pages, and that slowed me down a lot. So me thinking, oh, I can fill 100 pages easily, I maybe could have if I had, done one drawing per page, but then I would have had a lot of negative space that just kind of, I would not have been very satisfied with personally. So yeah, here's a Sorry Sad Girl and a Silent Stalker. I don't know if this is going to show up. It's drawn in like a very light orange, but it's a mellow page. Shwai Cool Girl again. I really like the way this face turned out. It's probably horribly asymmetrical. I can't flip it since it's on paper, but I'm sure if I were to mirror it, it would look disastrous, but I quite like it. Another Feisty Fight Girl page. Let's see. Drim. Never can go wrong with a good Drim page. Quite Schoolgirl. I quite like this one as well. Something about it. It's just I don't know. It's just pleasant. And stunning. Kube, 100% Kube approved. Here's Dawn. I was trying to work out better eyelashes for her, because her original design, she has these wacky spiked pointed eyelashes, but this is just too much going on. So I tried simplifying it down to just, a couple lashes on one side, which I think will work a lot better. I'll probably keep that. There's another Sadie. Sadie's got fun expressions. I like this one in particular. This one I feel I relate to. If I could grab the page here, that would help. Kube, 100% Kube approved. Some more Sorry Sad Girls. Some better than others. Here's a shoulder. For some reason, strange as it may sound, one of my favorite joints, one of my favorite muscle interactions in the body is just the way the shoulders, the arm connects to the torso, essentially. So like everything going on with the shoulder, the way the shoulder muscle threads through the chest muscles and then, threads into the back muscle with the shoulder blade and stuff like that. That's a really fun joint to draw. So it's probably a lot more fun in a less neutral position than this, but particularly in some of the figures I did later in the sketchbook, I quite enjoyed that. This not a character, just a miscellaneous. Handsome Hot Guy and Suka from Kauai Schoolgirl. This is a character from high school. She made her up in 9th grade, I think. I don't remember her name, but I'm pretty sure she had one. Spears. So I've got a character that uses a spear occasionally, and I've never really drawn characters fighting with spears, which I know sounds like a random thing. Most people probably haven't, but I wanted to try and just see where it got me. And so yeah, I just worked on some spear stuff. There's a little bit more later on, but you'll see that. And this is that same character. This is Crest from Legacio. This page is all Nina. This was a good idea, but I executed it poorly, so I just overshaded the arm to try and have some fun with it, because I realized like this whole thing was a disaster and I couldn't save it. Macaroni and cheese. I wanted to work on just experimenting with digitigrade legs in different angles, just kind of feeling it out, because I haven't drawn much of that. I don't draw a lot of furries. I think she's the only one I've got. Here's another Curse page. Her eyes are kind of wonky. Yeah, so Miscellaneous Hands. This is a thumb, I promise. This page is a disaster. I don't know what's going on here. We just got a couple of mouths here and a very poorly drawn skull over here. I don't know what these are. Here's another bone, another bow, and another bow. This is a pretty good one. I like this. I don't know, something about the way the shading came out on this. It really, really works. I did some alphabet pages earlier where I would ask people for random letters. I talked about that, but I did another session of those where, like I said, I started the challenge with my sister and my brother-in-law. And so we got together quite a few times throughout the month just to kind of motivate each other to all keep going. And during one of those sessions, I showed my sister some of those earlier pages with the alphabetical character names. And she was like, oh, that's a cool idea. Let's just do the whole alphabet. And so we started doing that. And so starting with A, this is Andra, Aki, and Arson. Very poorly drawn Arson, but he's there. This is either Bridget or Bernadette. I can't remember her name, but I know it starts with a B. She's from Singer Senpai, a project that hopefully never gets made. There's Bone and Bao, Corsa, Creep, Kube, and Cairo. Dandy, Dressir, and Don. Edge, E, and Aerolos. Feisty, Fish. I couldn't think of any F characters at the time. I've got a lot. Incidentally, I've got quite a few characters for most letters of the alphabet, but like trying to think of them on the spot when you don't have the list in front of you, like my mind just blanked at every single one. It was rough. There's Goris and Gome. This is Hannah, and this is a different Hannah. They're both pretty poorly drawn. Speaking of poorly drawn, here's Ishito. Jai and Juliander. That's her name. This one is Karani. This one's Karen. She's very, very tilted to the left for some reason. Don't know what's up with that, but these are all Lola. And I kind of like how this one turned out. I wanted to go like slightly realistic with it, and I ended up going a little more realistic than I usually do. But I am pretty satisfied with it. I mean, it's not great. It looks like a high school art project, but I'm okay with it. Step maybe closer to the right direction. Let's see, here, these are both Meru. This is Mocha and Masat. Nonel, Naki, and Nina. Here's Orville and Ori with a gun. This is just a random cider that I drew. And here's Fikov. And that's where I gave up. I gave up at P. I stopped. Our session ended. I went home and I just drew whatever the heck I felt like. And so we got another dumpster girl. There's going to be a lot of those, even more than before. And I shaded her with green. And after I did that, I remembered, oh, I've got another character that's green. And so I drew Patches, who is also a lanky zombie-looking thing. I guess I have a type. There's some more Alejandros. I was trying to stylize his big muscles, and it almost worked. It needs a little bit more experimentation still. And here's just a very Fabio-esque Alejandro realistic face. This whole page is just a giant eyeball, and it sucks really bad. So I guess, you know, if it comes time that I run out of toilet paper, we have another situation like last year, I'll use this one first. There's Sunday. Miscellaneous stuff. Random joints and things. The Rogue and Zircon. This is Lord Edge. He's a character, I've drawn him a couple times in this book, but I never referred back to his original reference, and I was trying to draw him from memory after not having drawn him in like over 2 years. And let me tell you, after looking at his reference after the fact, it was very, like, this was not even close, but this might end up being his new face, because it's you know, I kind of like it. The faux hawk and everything. Here's Sable. This is Asa. I wanted to try drawing from Worm's Eye View. It went better than expected. That's all I could really say about it. This is Sarbeth. Dragon Lady and Terex. Some more faces. These are Zir from Moe Microwave. Kiwi. This was a face where I wanted to try and see how fast I could draw a face. So I just slapped it together, and I think literally about a minute this took. And it's not any specific character, it's just a random face. And, you know, it's like really asymmetrical and wonky, but about a minute that took. So, you know, if I really wanted to, I could have grinded out quite a few pages that way. Here's another obligatory Kube page. Kube, 100% Kube approved. Here's a realistic Kube. You know, I'm kind of happy with this one. Not fantastic, but I like it. I think it's pretty close to what she would probably look like if she really existed. Thank goodness she doesn't. And here's a poorly drawn Shame. Kube. Miscellaneous outfit ideas for her. There's a character called Stasa. I don't know why he ended up looking so pretty here. I think it's the eyelashes. But yeah, he was pretty fun. And these ones are all failed. Just pretend those don't exist. Just look at this one. Miscellaneous wings, and this was supposed to be an Alyssa, and it came out horrible. Oh man, I got really drunk and drew this. This is a close-up of Shame. I guess drawing drunk, I just drew bigger, which maybe I should have done that more often because it would have filled more pages. And here's another macaroni and cheese. And these are both Zarnoff. That's another Cress. This is, can't remember her name, but she's a plant witch with tiny flower pots on her head. Angry Anarchist, Kauai schoolgirl character. One of the villains that hasn't appeared yet, and this is Prudent Punisher, same situation. He kind of looks like Lurch. Not intentional. No, these are all Regilev from World in Peril. And here's Pete, also from World in Peril. Again with the eyelashes, I think. I over-eyelashed him, and now he's a very sexy-looking old man. I think this character's name is Lucille, and this one is Wendy. Those are from Ghosties. Jellyfish Robot. Random character from a dream that I was going to turn into something, but I never did anything with it, and it's probably for the better. Oh, look, we're back to Kauai Schoolgirls. And Kube. Actually, I quite like this Kube. This one's pretty good, too. No, so yeah, spear poses. I was talking about this earlier. I was drawing some more spear stuff, and I decided to look up some references, which up to this point I had not drawn anything in this book from reference. It was all just straight out of my mind. But so I just, searched up, spear fighting poses or spear fighting, and, just looked at image results. And I just drew from that, and it was pretty fun. Most of these are like guys from like Renaissance fairs and stuff like that, or people that practice like old style fighting. And so obviously they're all wearing clothes in the pictures, but I just kind of, did them like this, as figures. And so here's a couple more. This one actually wasn't drawn from references. It's just based off of, like, what I had gathered from previous references. These are just faces. Ignore this page, throw that one in the trash. Kind of like this face, though. Something about it. Some more miscellaneous faces. Another dumpster girl, a whole page of feet. I didn't realize how bad I was at feet, but I probably should have done a few more pages of them. I didn't, though. I wanted to draw a POV from inside a car with someone driving said car. Turned out to be a lot harder than I thought, so I gave up on it about halfway and drew a face instead. And I kind of like this face, but I like it a little too much to a point where, like, I think if I tried to finish it, I would probably mess it up, so I think it's just going to stay like this. Here's Alicia, my random zombie. She's a goblin, random goblin character. And Dumpster Girl, my zombie character. Dumpster Girl's a radioactive zombie mutant thing. Kube and Shame. This one is Zarnoff. The pizza picture. I was really craving some pizza and talking about it loudly. And so my brother-in-law says, well, draw a pizza. And so I did. And then I drew Dumpster Girl holding said pizza. And then we ordered pizza. And here's Dragon Lady. This one came out horribly. I think I made her face a little too long. And so now she looks like she works at Spencer's. Those miscellaneous mouths and eyes and stuff. This is just armor. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this page is. Just whatever. Okay. Cats. I feel like this is a character, and I cannot for the life of me remember who it was supposed to be. I've definitely got at least a few cat girl characters, but I cannot remember who this is, and that's going to bother me. But anyway, some more cats. I was looking at a book about cats and trying to draw accurate cat faces. So as you can see, like over the course of these 2 pages, they got a lot better. These ones started out monstrous, like they're horribly failed, like but a couple drawings later, they got a bit better. I don't know what this is. Some more spear poses. Miscellaneous face. This is supposed to be Melora, but it came out horribly. Oh, this one was fun. So I was challenged to try and draw a face without looking at it. So I was like, just draw the face while looking away from the paper or closing your eyes, either way. And so I tried to draw a Kube, and and this is what I ended up with. And I added the line fill. I filled in the eyelashes after the fact, but yeah, everything else is just drawn completely blind. And some of these, like the shading and stuff, was added after the fact. But yeah, it was a disaster. There's another cider. Dandy and Sousa, Kube and Sadie, and I have no idea who that is. Guy on a bike, person with a face. So yeah, we're it looks like I'm a little over the halfway mark by this point, so I would have been about 3 weeks in by now. So the thing with this is I was going so slowly. I was so far behind. By the time I got to the final week of the challenge, I was about halfway through it. And so we all got together to try and do a major catch-up session. And I think by the end of this day, where I was drawing this, by the end of this day, I think I had drawn... it's on the last page. I was keeping a tally, but I think I came up to like 58 pages. When I was really aiming for like more than 100. But yeah, here's some more Kauai schoolgirls. Because yeah, ultimately I was my own worst enemy with this challenge. I was way too confident going into it. I really thought I could draw a lot faster than I could. I thought I could fill pages a lot faster than I could. It was a really good trim. And I couldn't. I was horribly mistaken. There's an Asterion and a Torara. And so yeah, 1 week left in the challenge. I still had almost 300 pages left to draw. It was bad. It was really bad. And so I was just slamming these out. We did a full-on all-nighter, drew until I want to say 11 a.m. Over 12 hours of draw. Like we started probably like 6 p.m. the day before and just drew all night. And for all my effort, I did 58 pages that night. So yeah, it was not nearly as much as you would expect to get done in that amount of time. Here's just some Shawaiis. And yeah, it was bad. So I always had a kind of a plan, a backup plan, and that was if I fell behind to a point where I couldn't catch back up, I knew that I could always go and resort to figure drawing, which is to say just doing figure references and just drawing those directly into the book, and I could wipe out pages in no time with that. And I was really, really hoping it wouldn't come to that. But yeah, as time passed by, it more and more became less of an emergency backup strategy and more of an inevitability. And so here we are. This was with just 3 days to spare. I still had, I want to say, a total of 250-ish pages left that I needed to fill. And so I started figure drawing. So I decided to go through and draw 10 pages of each of the Kauai schoolgirls, the Magical Guardians, as they are officially titled. And so I started with Hawaii, and I just looked up pictures of people sword fighting. So I just looked up sword fighting stance or sword fighting picture, and a lot of them were just like random screenshots from movies or from things like that. Some of them were actual sword demonstrations. And then I just drew those as figures and then turned them into Hawaii Cool Girl. And then lazily colored them in very, very quickly. You can see they're not really like shaded particularly well or anything like that. The color's just kind of there. Because it made me feel more like I had done something less lazy than just draw figures. Made me feel a little bit better about them. But ultimately, it took too much time, and I ended up having to stop doing it. But yeah. So Shuai is all just from sword poses. Then we move on to Mellow, because they're just in rainbow order. As you can see, they're rainbow tagged in the top corner there. And Mellow's first 2 pages were a reference from salsa dancing, which, almost worked. But I wasn't really feeling it, so I switched to samba dancing. And her remaining pages were all referenced from that. So they're just random pictures that I found on the internet of samba dancers, and I just drew those poses as Mellow. And it was pretty fun. And then we get to Kauai Schoolgirl. All of hers were referenced from ribbon dancing. Because, I mean, they're a team of, like, very generic textbook magical girls. It's a parody show, but they're extremely generic. And so I was like, well, what would be something that would look like a magical girl pose? And I felt like ribbon dancing was very, very flowy and articulate, and it really, really fit the bill. So it worked out swimmingly. I don't know why I bothered with this one. This seemed kind of like lackluster. And then Drim. All of Drim's shots were taken from knife fighting references. So I just searched up knife fighting, and that's what she got. Every last one of them. These ones are pretty fun. Sorry Sad Girl, all of hers were referenced from ballet. And I really, really like the ballet poses. They're just so many nice poses. Like they do some really dynamic things. They really kind of test some of the limits, especially with the more flexible movements that they do. And so like it's really, really great for drawing practice stuff. There's a lot of like the foot over foot, and then like the bending the foot all the way back, and like that. I don't know, standing on tiptoes, that type of stuff. I don't know. It's something I hadn't really drawn much of before, and so I quite like that. Stunning. All of Stunning's poses were referenced from catwalk models. I just looked up catwalk stance or catwalk pose or whatever and just went with that. And what I found was that they're not that unique. Most of them are pretty similar. They kind of all walk mostly the same, and they don't really hit that many poses because it's more to show off the outfit more so than the model. So those didn't end up being too exciting, but I dedicated myself to it, so I finished it. See, here's Feisty. All of hers were referenced from MMA fighting. So, yeah, they're just various MMA stances. I think this one's Conor McGregor. And yeah, they were really fun. The only thing is, like, almost all of hers were referenced from male fighters, so I had to translate them to a more feminine figure. And, in some cases it worked. Other cases, like that last one, then where's that? I think this is a jiu-jitsu stance. This one didn't work as well. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. And so after that, this was the next day. I knocked out 70 pages with that Kauai schoolgirl experiment, and that was pretty fun. So the next day, I went back and revisited some more random reference drawings, and so I did some more ballet, but with Dumpster Girl. Because I like the way the very spindly movements and the long like emphasis on the legs. I mean, a lot of Dumpster Girl's poses are like very ballet-esque already, but not without being directly referenced from ballet. Whereas these ones obviously are just drawn straight from references of ballet dancers, and so that was a lot of fun, and it really worked well for her. And some of these I tried to just add a little bit more color to, so they weren't just completely blank. But as you can imagine, I was running out of time, so I didn't have the luxury of spending a lot of time on each drawing, unfortunately, even though I really wanted to. Here are just some kickboxing references. I just drew some kickboxing stuff. It sounded like fun, so I did it. These ones are Dumpster Girl doing figure skating poses. And there's a final one, and then this was just to finish off the day. I slapped a face on there because I didn't know what else to draw, and I was just ready to be done with the night. Sorry, that's a lie. These are the same. See, these ones were tabbed by day, so the pink in the corner means it was the same day. I think these were before work, these were after work. That's what it was, but I remember that being like a stopping point. And so yeah, I just did some more figures and turned them into Kauai schoolgirl characters very lazily. By this point, actually, I had started using a website called Line of Action, and what it is it's a figure drawing reference website. So it's meant to simulate life drawing, in a class environment. So what you do is they've got a few thousand images, and you select your criteria. You choose how long you want it to stay on each image, and then it will cycle through the pictures at those intervals. So the first day I did this, I set it to a 3-minute interval. That way I would be doing 20 drawings per hour. So basically you had 3 minutes to draw the picture before it changed off, and that's what I did. I just grinded them out, and then after finishing, X amount of them, I went back to some of them and colored characters over top the figures. Some of them I just left as blank figures, but yeah. It's just like if a particular pose spoke to a certain character, I would go back and draw that character over it. I wanted to do more of them that way. Here's Andra. I wanted to do more of them that way to make it really feel less dull and boring. Because I really, really, really didn't want to have to resort to doing figure drawing in the first place, because I felt like it would give me a kind of a dull sketchbook. I didn't want to have a 600-page sketchbook full of nothing but practice like figure drawing, because I didn't feel like that would be as fun to look back through. I wanted something that would kind of inspire me later on, and so that's why figure drawing was my last resort. But this was all the second to last day, and I needed to make up pages like crazy. This guy got turned into Starboy. There's another Nonel. She's got the wrong horns. Her horns are supposed to point upward. But yeah, it's a really cool website. The only downside is, like, it seems like most of their photos are taken from just a couple of photo shoots. So it's only a handful of models, and you get familiar with them very quickly, and you keep seeing the same people over and over again. And, you know, some of the poses start to feel similar, because after a while you realize how many poses can people actually be in. You know, a lot of them are going to start to feel samey after a while, and it does get exhausting. Here's a nice Telly. There's Melora. Oh, so we switched over into red now. Let me see, where did we switch? Yeah, so this was red was the final day. And on the final day, I counted all the pages I had left that I needed to draw, and it was 136. So I went back to the figure drawing website and kept going with that. But I set it to, I realized that the night before, I was finishing figures with time left over. And so I lowered it from a 3-minute interval to a 2-minute 40-second interval to draw the figures. And that way I can maximize the amount that I could do per hour. So I could get over 20 done per hour if I wanted to just go straight through, or I could do 20 per hour and then take a small break with the remaining time. And that's what I ended up doing for most of it. So I did several sessions throughout the day in, you know, lots of 20. I would just do 20 pages at a time. And that was how I got finished with the last 136 pages I needed to do. And it's unfortunate. Again, I didn't want to do it this way because I feel like this is just, for one, a lot of blank space, and also it's just a figure drawing. It's not really anything that I feel proud of, you know. It's basically art practice, so it's not really anything worth showing off. But there you have it. You know, I felt better resigning myself to drawing figures and being done with the challenge than giving up and failing the challenge. You know, I wanted to make sure that I at least had something on the page, and so I made the call to go ahead and go through with it. There's a Ravager, Rueful Ravager, Kauai School Girl villain. Yeah, there's another Sorry Sad Girl. But, you know, even though I'm not super proud of these random figure drawing pages, I do kind of like them, and I did enjoy doing it. It is a lot of fun. I would like to do some more of it. I would also especially like go back and like draw over some more of these. So basically what I did was I did in lots of 20, I drew all these figures until I finished all the pages off, except for the last 6 pages, which I just drew random stuff on because I didn't want to, you know, end on figure drawing. But and then with the time that I had left, I went back and drew over some of them and turned them into characters. So like at the end of the day, I had a couple hours to spare, and I went back and, you know, I used that to turn some of these into characters. And then technically the day after that was the 31st. A lot of people do the challenge in 30 days, so I felt kind of iffy about the 31st. I didn't want to treat it as a full day. But I used a couple hours on the 31st to do some more of this, like just turning figures into characters. But like all my pages had been covered by that time. There's Quester, Kauai, and Wawa. Sexo. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It felt like I don't know. I feel like I learned a couple things. It was a good chance to analyze some certain parts of the body that I was not fully confident on, and kind of get some affirmation on how to do them better. There's another Sorry Sad Girl. There's another Mocha. Another Sadie. Sadie's hair is usually it's a darker blue. I don't know why it's so light here, but it's whatever. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So the remaining pages are all just these figures. Here's a Lord Bao, and some of them have been drawn over into characters like Torara and Stunning. And even though these aren't really original, I can't really claim pride in them because again, they're redrawings of photographs. I do kind of like how some of them look. I won't lie. Some of the ones that got turned into characters, I'm quite happy with the outcome on them. You know, I would never present it as original art because I don't feel like it counts at that point, but I do quite like some of them. There's a Sousa, the face really melted off of that one, didn't it? But yeah, that was kind of the big takeaway from this challenge is I'm a horrible procrastinator. I'm just glad that I was able to turn it around in the end and technically finish, even if it's just, you know, 100 pages of this. I prefer that to nothing. I much prefer that to nothing. I would have been really disappointed in myself if I failed this challenge. I could not let myself do that. I would have really let myself down, and that's why I had to go through and grind out this ridiculous 130-page day. But yeah, I would absolutely like to do this challenge again. Now that I know, because by the end of it, I was doing so many pages per day. Like, 20 pages a day feels like nothing by the time you get to the end. Because you realize, like, oh, that's not so bad. I got a lot faster by the end of it. I felt a lot more confident by the end of it. And I do feel like I improved slightly on at least the faces. And there are a couple, like, very tiny, minute, specific parts of anatomy that I got a better grasp of. Especially after all this figure drawing, but particularly it's been fun drawing like the neckline. The way the neck and the arms connect to the torso is just such an interesting junction, and it's really fun to draw that, especially at different angles and positions. But yeah, I would say I quite like this challenge. It was incredibly stressful. Every day I could feel myself getting further behind, and it really felt like a thorn in my side, just digging deeper and deeper and deeper. But I did enjoy it the entire time, despite that, I feel like I tend to work better under pressure, so that's, part of my procrastinating nature is, the closer I get to the deadline, the more work I'm going to get done. And so it was nice kind of having that pressure to keep drawing. It helped that also I was doing this alongside, like I said, my sister and my brother-in-law, because having them also working on the same thing, for one, we could relate on the struggle, and also it was kind of that driving force to keep going, because I'm pretty competitive, so I knew that if they were going to keep going, I had to keep going, and I couldn't let myself lose. It almost became a competition, and I really, really, really was driven to keep going. And we also, we had those big sessions where we'd all get together, and it was almost like a party. So I'd like to keep doing stuff like that, like artistically. I think it'll be a lot of fun, but probably on a smaller scale. I do think this has definitely rekindled my I suppose you could say love of drawing. That sounds a little silly, but it's got me feeling eager to keep drawing. I finished this. Today is Wednesday. Yesterday was the 31st. At the time of this recording, yesterday was the 31st. And so it feels weird not having drawn anything today. I feel compelled to keep drawing. Like, I've gotten so in the habit of drawing every day, especially in this furious pace to try and catch up, that I feel like I have to keep going. And so I hope I can channel that artistic energy into something productive. I hope that I can bring some good out of it, or at the very least, I think I'll go back to doing sketchbooks again. It's going to be fun to fill up ordinary sketchbooks now, because a regular sketchbook's like maybe 100 pages, 150 pages. It's nothing compared to this. So we were even talking, me and my crew, so to say, we're talking about doing like just an ordinary sketchbook maybe once per month, and that'll just be a thing we do. We just have a monthly sketchbook. Because a regular one, is easy. 150 pages in a month compared to 600, it's no big deal. And there's no excuse. After having done this, there's no excuse anymore. No excuse applies at all. And, for me, I always felt like, as I've been an animator, for a lot of my art, I was always more of a writer, animator, entertainer type. I'm not into fine art. My art's not that good, and I never really cared that it wasn't that good. I do like to improve, and I always strive to get better at anything I do, really. But for me, art was, it was more of a vessel to tell a story, to entertain people. So I spent a lot of time in animation, and that's what my YouTube channel is built on, is just really crappy animations. They're not meant to wow you with the visuals, but they're just meant to be fun and enjoyable. And so I felt as an animator, I would have a leg up here, because I'm used to drawing hundreds of, frames in a short period of time. I've done full animations, full episodes, like, for example, Moe Microwave. I want to say it was over 2,000 frames. I drew it all in a month, and it was, ridiculous. So if you apply that to pages, that's like 3 times this amount. But it's a whole different game. It's a whole different game, especially because a frame is pretty small. It's maybe half a sheet of paper, long ways. And to fill up this is a massive surface. To fill up 600 of these, it's a whole different thing. So I was very cocky going into this. You could say it humbled me in a way. I realized that I was definitely overconfident. Kube. These are the last 6 pages where I just kind of drew some more fun stuff. I went back to my ordinary, just random draw whatever the heck comes to mind for the last 6 pages, because I didn't want to do the end on random figure drawing. So here's, of course, another sorry sad girl. Here's another Kawaii cool girl. She's very Kawaii, very cool. And our final lot of pages, we've got, of course, another dumpster girl. Wouldn't be my sketchbook without 800 dumpster girls in it. There's Cunning Cutie with absurdly long legs. She's one of the shorter characters. I don't know how she got, elongated so much. She's made of elastic. And here's, of course, a very powerful cider marking the end of the book. And then I bookended it with the same ugly heart thing that I put on the first page. It came out even worse than the first one, which is shocking. I guess that was just the exhaustion at that point. And then on the inside cover, you can see, like, about 2 weeks into this thing, I started to tally up how many pages I was drawing per day, because I felt like if I could quantify it, if I could, like, make it a statistic, that would help me, keep up with it better. It would help me put my own feet to the fire more, and it really give me that push to keep going. Because at that point I was competing with myself, So you can see here 8, 16, 32 pages, 8, 20, 37 pages, 8, 21, 35 pages, and 38 pages here, 40 pages here, 58, 40, 70, and this last one I stopped counting because this was the final day where I did 136 pages, and there was just no point. But yeah, this is what procrastination looks like. It's a pretty direct curve. As the closer I get to the end, the more pages I had to just start slamming out because I just had no time left. So yeah, that's my sketchbook tour for my Sketchbook Slam sketchbook. I hope I can keep this thing together. It's really falling apart here, but yeah, like I said, I would highly recommend this challenge to any artist. Time management is really the biggest enemy. It's all about really knowing what you're capable of and coming to terms with that. Like I had to. I definitely overestimated my own abilities. But yeah, it's certainly a time management challenge, and I would have benefited from going into this with some sort of plan. Like I always had the backup plan of figure drawing, but that wasn't really a plan. And so I think I'd like to do this again someday. I want to try this maybe next year, next summer. I'll do another one of these because I'd love to try doing it better. Now that I know what pitfalls to avoid falling into, I'd like to try doing a better one. But yeah, if you made it this far into the video, you might as well like, you might as well comment, you might as well subscribe. I don't know when my next video will be or if I'll do any more stuff like this, but I'll see you all hopefully sometime in the future. But for now, thanks and have a great day.